Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick Push. We're in the middle of winter, guys, and I thought it would be fun to review some really badass winter horror movies. And for me, it doesn't get much more badass than the movie The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick and, of course, written by Stephen King. Whew, there is so much to talk about with this movie, guys. So many different theories and breakdowns and behind the scene things going on. There are countless videos out there, countless books out there. I will never be able to do justice for this movie. But it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Actually, one of my favorite movies in general of all time. So I wanted to try and tackle it. It's a little overwhelming, but I got a lot of visual aids, and I really just kind of want to break it down. So, without further ado, let's talk Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. So like I was saying, this movie is pretty daunting to try to review and break down, especially for someone like me who's not really a movie reviewer per se. But I'm going to do my best. Like I said, I got a lot of visual aids, and for me, the best way to do this is just to kind of go through the movie scene by fucking scene. I got slides of different screenshots I want to show you guys, and we're just going to kind of break it down. I'm going to tell you guys what's happening. It's going to kind of be going through the movie beat by beat, and then we're going to break down what we're seeing and break down what's happening in each scene. So, I am going to switch screens on you here, and we are going to make some room for my visual aids, and we're just going to get right into this, guys. Real quick before I do that, if you like horror, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I talk a lot of horror on this channel. I'm excited now that some movies like Halloween Ends are over and Scream will be coming to a close soon. I'm excited to talk about a lot more variety of horror. So that's kind of my goal with this channel. Also, this winter, I'm going to review other winter horror movies in addition to The Shining. Next, I have planned my other favorite winter horror movie, which is John Carpenter's The Thing. I'm excited to do that. But let's start with The Shining right away. So, right off the bat, very simple, guys. We get the title card, and of course the glorious theme music, the score, doom, 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 and it just sets up the tone of this movie. I mean, this is just scenes of a car, a yellow car, driving through the mountains, and there's just a very ominous feel to it. It's just pretty incredible what they're able to do with just a score and some visuals, which is pretty much, the theme of this movie as far as what they're able to do. They're just using making us uncomfortable and using different visual aids and visual scenes, and along with the score to give us an unsettling feeling. Next slide we got. Next scene here. Like I said, these are going in order, and we're just going to talk about them. Some of them I'm going to break down a little more in detail than others. But next we see the exterior of the Overlook Hotel, which I know Stephen King came up with the idea while staying in the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, and I don't believe this is the exterior of the Stanley. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. Really big ass hotel in the middle of the mountains. Next up, we got the man of the hour, Jack Torrance, entering the lobby. You can see the gold room in the back, which is going to play a big part later in this movie, and you just see him wearing a suit, and we're wondering what he's doing. Actually, before this comes up, we know what he's doing, because before this comes up, we get a snapshot of some text, and it says the interview. So he's interviewing for something at this hotel. And then we cut back, and we're introduced to his family, Wendy Torrance, and his son, Danny Torrance. And they're just doing everyday things. Looks like Danny's eating lunch. Got a sandwich here. And Wendy is reading a book because it's 1980 and there's no cell phones to play on. And after that, we are introduced to Tony. Okay, Tony is what seems to be Danny's imaginary friend. Okay, and Wendy even asks what Tony would think of certain things. And they talk about, Jack's interview and, staying at the hotel for 3 or 4 months or whatever it is. And after that, we cut into the interview. Now, this is an interesting scene. You got Jack here intently looking, and basically, the guy that, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that is interviewing him, that's in charge of the hotel, is explaining the job to him. So he explains the job to him. He's going to be the caretaker for the winter. He has to turn on the boilers and all that, and it's going to be extreme isolation. And he's asking if his family can handle that. And then he cuts in with a story how an older caretaker years ago murdered his whole family with an axe. So that is setting up the isolation and setting up what happened and what could happen. And then we cut to Danny Torrance in the bathroom, and this is where we're kind of introduced to his, what we later find out is The Shining. And this is just a creepy scene. Look, it's just a kid in a bathroom washing his hands, but Danny gets these images. He's got the image next to me of the famous blood elevator. And it's just very creepily done. And it's Danny talking to himself, essentially talking to Tony, asking if he's excited to, or why he doesn't want to go to the hotel. And Tony's saying, in Danny's voice obviously, Tony's saying, well, I don't want to tell you. So we get a little bit into the premonitions of Danny right there. And there it is, the one of the visions, the first vision of the blood elevator we got, like I said. And just like that, next Jack calls Wendy, tells her he got the job, and boom, they are off. I chose this picture because look, you see Danny and Wendy kind of intently talking and wondering what's going on, and Jack's got his business face on. They are there to go. It just kind of gives kind of a nice snapshot of the dynamic of the family there. They get to the hotel, and Danny's in the game room, and what appears? These two twin girls. Remember, other than the people leaving the hotel, nobody should really be there. And Danny sees these two girls, and what I love, and I'm not showing here, what I love that Kubrick does here is before he shows us the two girls, he shows Danny's face and hangs on it for a second. He does that a lot in this movie. Kubrick's a fucking genius. You guys don't need me to tell you that, but he is a fucking genius. Little subtle things like that really kind of show us, oh, Danny's worried about something, and then it cuts to show what he's worried about. And it's these two girls, and we know that Danny has these premonitions, so they are unsettling him. And basically what's happening here is Jack and Wendy and Danny are getting specific tours of the hotel. Here we have Wendy and Danny being shown around the kitchen by the cook, Dick Halloran. And it's just kind of showing how vast and big the hotel is. It's really taking its time to set up and show us the setting of this place, which I like. And then what happens is they need Wendy for something, and Dick Halloran, while they were given the tour, was talking to Danny, but talking without speaking, believe it or not. They were like reading each other's minds. And Dick Halloran explains that he has this gift too. And he got it from his grandma, and he calls it The Shining. So that's where we learn, the title of this movie, The Shining. And essentially, he's talking to Danny, and Danny's explaining he's not supposed to talk about it, etc. And then we get some of the cues of what happens later in this movie when Danny asks, because he had The Shining, about room 237. And Dick Halloran here tells him, don't go in room 237. So that sets up some things for the plot. And once again, this is just two characters talking, right? And you got an ominous score. You're going to hear me say this a lot. You got an ominous score and just unsettling vibe here. Right after that, we cut to a month later. And what's going on a month later? They have settled in. They have settled into the hotel and settled into their lives. And we get this great shot by Kubrick. We got Danny on his little tricycle bike there, and he is just a kid with all the space in the world, driving his bike all over the hotel. And what I love about this scene is Kubrick is using a low steady cam, so we're following Danny right along with him at that same level. And as you see here, we got a wood floor with different area rugs on it, and the sound is just letting the wheels go. So Danny is riding on the wood floor, and you hear doom, and then boom, quiet when he hits the carpet, and then doom, and then quiet. Once again, so subtle, and they are just setting up so many things here. We're following Danny, and nothing happens. Nothing happens, but we're waiting for something to happen, just like the movie Halloween, when, you're waiting for something to happen. Kubrick and the Shining movie here are so good at that. I got a lot of visual aids, guys, so don't worry. This is going to be a little bit of a longer review here. But like I said, as someone that's not a movie reviewer, I just found it's the best way to do something like this, especially a Kubrick movie when there's just so much. I don't want to forget anything. So next up, we get a map of, it's called the Overlook Maze, and it's a hedge maze outside. It kind of cuts to this map after you see Danny and Wendy playing outside, and they go into the maze, and you can see how big and vast this maze is. And while they are inside, we are seeing Jack inside, getting a little bit of cabin fever. Before the picture here, he's throwing a tennis ball around off the wall. I used to do that when I was a kid all the time. Very realistic, especially for him being a writer. He's excited to be writing his book here. I didn't mention that earlier. See, I'm already missing shit, even with all this stuff. But it's just so much going on here. But what I love about this scene is we see Danny and Wendy in the maze, and then we see Jack with this miniature of the maze walk over there, and you see Jack look down, and then the camera pans down, and you see little miniatures of Wendy and Danny, and it cuts down to them, and Jack is just kind of hovering over them. The symbolism there is fucking fantastic. Just a brilliant shot and a brilliant scene where, once again, not a lot going on here, but it's setting things up. After that, we get Danny riding his tricycle again, this time through one of the hallways upstairs. I'm guessing the second floor, because you see him stop and turn around here, and he sees room 237, and the score really kicks in nice here, and we were feeling very uncomfortable. Danny actually gets up. It's like he's drawn to room 237. He gets up and he jiggles the doorknob, but it's locked. And then he gets back on his bike and drives off. Just brilliant, creepy vibes there. Then we get a cool scene here. So you see Jack in the big... This room's called something I can't remember, but essentially, for lack of a better term here, I'm going to call it the lobby. I know it's not really the lobby because there's no front desk here, but it's just a big hall. And this is where Jack is working. And you can see down in the bottomish right-hand side of this, you see Wendy approaching him. So Wendy approaches him. I can't remember if she's asking if he wants a sandwich or something. But she approaches him as Jack's writing. Jack gets a little pissed off at this. Here's where we see a little bit of Jack's crazy side. And he's pretty much a fucking prick to her here. Like a big prick. He starts saying, do you hear me typing? Don't come in here. That means I'm working. And, he's like, look at his face here. He is pissed off. He even ends the conversation with saying, now start by getting the fuck out of here. And it's just like, holy shit. And you really feel for Wendy. She is scared of him there because he is just being such a bastard to her. And that's once again just setting up that, Jack is pretty temperamental already. After that, we have a scene that just I just wanted to put this in here because it shows, a snowstorm hit. And it just shows, they are essentially trapped in this area. There's no way out of there. You have the snowcap back there, which could help them escape. But this family they're in for the winter. And this is a cool scene. So it just kind of shows Wendy and Danny outside. But while this is going on, it cuts to Jack watching them. And you can see he is starting to lose his goddamn mind here. You don't know whether it's the hotel, you don't know whether it's cabin fever, but he is losing it. He had a pretty disturbing look on his face there. He's all disheveled and shit. Pretty crazy scene. It's kind of become a joke now after COVID. It kind of turned into a meme. But in the context of watching this movie, it is like, oh God, what is going on with this guy? Next, one of the best scenes of the movie. I mean, I could say that for so many of these. But Danny runs in. He's riding his tricycle again. We're following him, and he runs into the two twin girls again. This scene is really creepy. So what I like about this scene is it starts out same as normal. Danny riding his tricycle. Okay? Just like normal. They've already set up. Kubrick has already set up that, he's going to show Danny riding his tricycle and nothing's going to happen. Well, Danny turns a corner and boom, there they are. The sound beat kicks in and it's like, holy shit. And Danny kind of closes his eyes and you see images of the girls murdered with an axe with blood everywhere. That's what Danny sees with this shining gift. And then he's kind of closing his eyes and then they're gone. Really creepy stuff. And then he even says, talking to his pal Tony there, he's like, even says, Tony, I'm scared. And in the audience, you're wondering, okay, there's definitely some supernatural shit going on here. You just don't know what yet. And you're just waiting for it. After that, I don't really know how to word this, but this might be the most unsettling scene for me in this movie, with everything that's about to happen, right? Which we'll talk about. But this scene in particular I find really unsettling. It's just Danny walking to his room to get like his fire truck or something, and he walks by Jack's bedroom, and Jack is just sitting there, and I think it's the middle of the day, sitting there in a robe, disheveled again, and he asks Danny to come near him. And what I like what Kubrick does here is he shoots it from Jack from behind, but we got the mirror there, so we can see what Danny sees in Jack's face. And essentially, Danny goes and sits on Jack's lap and asks him if he likes this hotel. And Jack basically says, yes, he loves this hotel. And he's kind of whispering it. And they got a great music playing that just really unsettles you. And he's saying he loves this hotel. He wishes they could stay there forever and ever, which is exactly part of what those twin girls said. And that's when you know something's going on with Jack here. This hotel is getting to Jack somehow. And then Danny mentions something like, Dad, you would never hurt me and Mommy, right? And Jack's like, no, of course not. Did your mother tell you that? Are you sure? Yes, Dad. And it's just really creepy. Like, Jack does not trust Wendy. And because I forgot to mention something. It's set up earlier that Jack, when he came home drunk one night and accidentally dislocated, before they came to the hotel, he accidentally dislocated Danny's shoulder trying to move Danny, and it was an accident, okay? And Jack has not drank since. It's been like 5 months. But there you see Jack kind of not really trusting Wendy, thinking she might tell Danny that he's going to hurt him again. So it's just setting up, planting the seeds of things that are going to happen later on. After that, we get a scene where Danny is playing in the hallway, and all of a sudden a tennis ball is rolled to him. And Danny gets up, wants to see where it's coming from. He's asking, Mom, are you there? And lo and behold, he's right in front of room 237 and the door is open. And he wanders in room 237. Somehow the door is open with a key in it. It's like that ball just kind of enticed him to go in there. Next, we cut to, first before this scene, we cut to Wendy working in the boiler room. It's funny because Wendy is actually the only one we see actually doing Jack's job in this movie, with turning on the boilers and stuff. But she hears Jack screaming, like really loud, ah, ah, ah. So she comes running to Jack, and he's in his chair and he's sleeping. He's having a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And he hits the ground, and Wendy's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I had a horrible dream. I had a dream I killed you and Danny. And I didn't just kill you and Danny. I chopped you into little pieces. And you can tell Wendy's a little off-put by this. She is off-put by this. Understandable, right? She's already seen Jack yell at her, and he's kind of losing his mind here. And then he has a dream saying that, he chopped her and Danny into little pieces. While this is going on, Danny wanders into the room, and he's all kind of beat up. And he has a huge huge like red mark on his neck, and his shirt is torn. And Wendy goes over to him. She's like, "What's going on?" So she picks him up and starts yelling at Jack, "You did this! Why would you do this? How could you? How could you?" And then it cuts to Jack's face, and he is looking baffled and bewildered because Jack, at least in his mind, he did not do that, and he's getting blamed for it. Absolutely blamed for it. Another great shot by Kubrick, and a great job by Nicholson, just showing, how baffled and unhinged he is at this point in the movie. Next, we get Jack after this, pretty pissed off. He's walking down the hallway, and every time he passes a mirror, he's ranting and raving. Mirrors play a big role in this movie too. But he's ranting and raving. He's getting blamed for this shit. Lo and behold, he makes his way to the gold room, completely empty, and he goes and sits down at the bar. And he looks in the mirror, and what does he see? Besides himself doing a crazy face, he sees Lloyd the bartender. And at this point, you don't know if Jack is just seeing this in his mind, or if the hotel has somehow made this ghost appear, and it's Lloyd the bartender. And he has a big conversation with Lloyd. Has a drink. He's talking about how he hurt Danny and it was an accident. He loves the guy, and he's kind of disparaging Wendy a little bit. He's calling her names and things like that. Talking about his burden and a man's burden and things like that. So if the hotel is real here, it is just playing on everything it needs to with Jack. Jack has just given them so much ammo with whatever is going on with him. While this is going on, Wendy comes running down to Jack and tells him that Danny was hurt. Danny says he was hurt by some woman in room 237. And while this is going on, sorry, I got a new slide here, but while this is going on, I'm jumping all over the place, guys, but this is kind of how this movie goes, and like I said, this is the best way I could think of to do this, because it is Kubrick, and there's just so much happening here. It cuts to our buddy Dick Hallorann, who is in Miami, and Dick is kind of having this feeling and this premonition, because remember, he has the Shining just like Danny, that something is wrong at the Overlook. He's got this feeling. And after that, we cut to Jack going into room 237. And you can see here just the bathroom. Look at the colors. Once again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Just the score here is just, boom, it's just low and unsettling. And while Jack is looking in the bathroom, we then get a look at Jack's face, and he sees something he likes. What is it? A naked woman. Yes, we got nudity on this channel, guys. It's like the Pornhub of YouTube reviews. Kidding, obviously. No porn here. But, Jack sees a naked woman in the bathtub. And Jack likey a lot. So much so that they start making out. He's got a wife upstairs, a kid upstairs. He's making out with this naked woman. But then what happens next? He looks in the mirror. Remember, mirrors again. Symbolism. This movie is chock full of it. There's going to be so much I don't even mention that is just chock full of symbolism. But he looks in the mirror and he sees it is not a beautiful woman anymore. It is someone with her skin falling off, essentially a crazy old fucking lady. As Jack starts backing up, she starts laughing and coming at him. Dear God, that is fucking creepy. Not what Jack wanted to see. So Jack goes back up to the room, says he saw nothing up there to Wendy. No one was in that room, which is a little curious, by the way. And then Wendy says, they need to go. They need to leave the hotel. They need to get Danny to a doctor. And Jack fucking snaps again. This time even worse than before. He starts yelling at her, and he says some really cruel things. He says, "I'm not gonna let you fuck up my life again," or something like that. Or, "You fucked up my life one too many times." And he storms out. And while this is happening, Dick Hallorann trying to call the hotel, call the cops to reach the hotel because the phones are down, try to reach them on the radio to see if everything is okay. And then we cut to Jack going down back to the gold room for another drink. Sobriety be damned again. But what does he see? A room full of people. Old-fashioned people, it looks like, because this is a ball. This is a ball full of people, and Jack is ready to mingle and party. So he goes to the bar, gets another beer, or another drink, I should say, Jack Daniels. Gets another drink, And Lloyd, the bartender, tells him his money is no good there. The drinks are on the house. That's what Lloyd was told, that Jack does not have to pay for drinks. So Jack, after initially being a little curious of why his money's no good, says, fuck it, I'm going to enjoy myself. And what does he do? He gets up, but boom, he is run into by one of the waiters who spills shit all over Jack. So they go to the bathroom and the waiter will help him clean it up. While the waiter is helping him clean it up, and look at again the bathroom. A lot of mirrors again, but look at the colors. The bathroom up in 237 was a green color. This is a red color. But Jack is talking to this waiter. And while he is talking to the waiter mentions his name, and Jack recognizes the name as the same name that during his interview, the guy said chopped up his wife and kids. The former caretaker. And Jack says, you're the guy that chopped up your kids. You're the former caretaker. The guy's like, no, you're mistaken. He says, you're the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know. I've always been there. Or been here. The waiter then starts to get a little sinister. The waiter's name is Grady, by the way. Grady starts to get a little sinister and mentions that Jack needs to correct his family. And you know what correct means? I think it means fucking kill his family just like he did. Because they needed to be corrected. And you can see I pulled up just this sinister look there. Once again, you look at the eyes. Just a creepy scene of two guys talking. So Jack says, you know what? I do need to do this. So he walks away, and it's a cool shot. I just thought it was a cool shot because it just shows Jack pretty much on autopilot here. Just walking, and he actually walks into the radio room and destroys the radio. You can see him here. He takes a chip out of there. And that essentially tells us they're going to have no contact with the outside world. Jack is assuring that nobody is coming to help them. While this is happening, Wendy is walking around, kind of looking for Jack. I don't know if she's looking for Jack or just kind of walking around, but she has a baseball bat here. So she knows that Jack is fucking lost his mind. He's being mean. She doesn't know what he is going to do. She doesn't know if he hurt Danny or what happened. So she's walking and she sees Jack's typewriter. And she starts reading it. And we see all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. And you see little typos there, and she goes through, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of pages of the same thing. Just this same sentence. All work and no play make Jack a dull boy. And while she's looking at this, you got a creepy music again. And at this point, Wendy knows what we know. Jack has lost his fucking mind. This is all he has been writing for, months and months. This is all he's been writing. He's been claiming to work, and all he's been doing is writing this. He is fucking gone. She knows when she sees this, his mind is gone. While she's reading it, in pops Jack from behind. You can see a shadow here. Wendy turns around startled, and Jack says something to the effect of, how do you like it? So he knows that she knows. And then we get, this is a famous scene here, we get Wendy being startled, holding the baseball bat, and she's crying. Jack's being a dickhead to her again. He's mocking her. She's saying we need to get Danny to a doctor. Here you can see Jack mocking her. He's just being cruel again. We need to get him to a doctor. And you can just see, Kubrick made these actors film so many takes of this, like hundreds sometimes. Most people know that Shelley Duvall, the actress that plays Wendy, I don't know if she had a mental breakdown after this, but it was a rough shoot for her. You really feel for it. Whether Kubrick was right or not, that's up for debate, but he did get the great performances we got here. So as far as, what was best for the movie, I think he was right. Was it the best for the performers? Probably not. That's a whole nother video. But Jack and Wendy here are going at it. And after that, Jack is coming up the stairs at Wendy as she's backing up the stairs. And we get the famous line, Wendy, light of my life, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. Just fucking classic. And, Jack's in full-blown psycho mode at this point, obviously. But Wendy decides to fight back. She hits him in the head with a baseball bat, and he goes tumbling down the stairs. Great scene. Great job by Wendy, and just awesome shot here of seeing Jack just lying at the bottom of the stairs. Wendy then doesn't know what to do, so she drags Jack's ass to the pantry and locks him in there. A lot of strength for Wendy here. Jack cannot be a light person, but Wendy is trying to survive here, and she throws him in there and locks it up. Like, there's no way out for Jack. You even see Jack here in this scene. Essentially, I mean, great shot here. There's a behind-the-scenes shot of Kubrick lying on the ground getting this, and Jack trying to get out, and he's kind of yelling at Wendy, and he tells Wendy there is no escape because he destroyed the snowcat. Wendy goes and checks, and I just wanted to put this picture up again just to show that they are fucking trapped. She checks the snowcat, and it is destroyed. They are stuck there, and there's no escape. They got no contact with the radio and no vehicle to leave, and obviously it is the dead of winter in Colorado. One of the worst snowstorms they've had in years. They are trapped. Jack here is stuck in the pantry, and here is where we kind of get our first hint that, you know, this isn't all in Jack's head, because while he is here, he hears someone on the other side, and it's saying it's great. He's saying it's Grady again, and Grady is basically kind of mocking Jack, saying you underestimated your wife. She has the upper hand. And while this is happening, Jack's saying, just give me another chance, blah, blah, blah. And Grady opens the door. The door is unlocked. So Jack clearly couldn't have been doing all this in his mind, and he clearly couldn't have unlocked the door. So the hotel is wanting Jack to do this. While this is going on, we got Dick Hallorann from Miami, traveling from Miami all the way to Colorado. That's how worried he is. His shining connection with Danny is telling him that things are wrong. So it's quite a trek. What a great guy. Quite a trek. While this is going on, while Jack's getting out of the pantry there, we're cut to Wendy's sleeping, and Danny grabs the knife that she had by her bedside for protection, and he's starting to say, "Red rum, red rum, red rum." And at this point, we don't know what red rum is. Danny grabs her lipstick and writes red rum on the door. Wendy wakes up, sees Danny with, the knife, just chanting, and she tries to console him, and she looks in the mirror, and what does red rum mean? What does it spell backwards? Murder. And the second she sees that, we hear a big boom, and Jack is taking an axe to their door. Classic fucking scenes here. Like I said, Jack is in full fucking psycho mode here. Wendy gets Danny out of the window, slides him down the big snowbank there, which luckily went right up against the window that they were staying in. But she cannot get out. She tells Danny to run because Jack's going to kill him. She is stuck though. And we get Jack then taking the axe through the bathroom door, and this shot of Shelley Duvall just going nuts in fear. She's holding a knife, which we can't see here, but she is just going nuts in fear. Jack is taking an axe to the door. And then we get probably the most famous line or scene from this movie. Jack's, "Here's Johnny," in reference to Johnny Carson. But Wendy gets a little bit lucky here, because right when Jack's about to come in, she stabs his hand, and then you hear a snowcat outside. They hear someone's here. It's Dick Hallorann, who is coming to save the day, right? Wrong. Jack goes down and just fucking kills him with the axe. Poor Dick Hallorann. Jack just fucking killed him. He drove from Miami. He got from Miami all the way to Colorado just to help the family. And Jack just kills him. And look at that, guys. So much has happened in this movie. This is the first kill of the movie. The first kill of the movie. Crazy. But it's still been scary and unsettling this whole time. Just brilliant tension by Kubrick. And now shit is starting to hit the fucking fan. While Dick's killed, Danny, who was hiding earlier, runs outside because he kind of had a premonition of that. Jack sees him, and Jack takes off after Danny outside. And then we get the hotel starting to reveal itself as supernatural and evil to Shelley Duvall. She's walking around and she sees a bunch of different things that are supernatural. You get this scene here of, and I'm not making this up, a guy in a bear costume giving a guy in a tuxedo a blowjob. There's a lot of symbolism with this kill. People have speculated that this is that this whole movie, Danny had been sexually abused by Jack, right? And Wendy subconsciously forgot about it. Well, you see certain scenes with Danny buy a bear costume, or would not bear costume. Danny buy like a fake bear, whether he had a fake bear shirt or a fake bear like above his bed on a blanket or something like that. People said this is Shelley Duvall then remembering that Danny was abused by Jack. I can't say that for certain. Like I said, there's so many questions in this movie. I like movies with questions, guys, where we don't get answers. God, this movie is so fucking good. But like I said, to get back on track here, the hotel is starting to reveal itself here to Shelley Duvall. And while that is going on, Danny is running away from Jack, and he runs into the hedge maze. Great symbolism earlier showing us it, knowing that it's going to play a big part in the climax of this movie. Obviously, it's cold and freezing, and Danny is going in there to escape his murderous father. Another picture here I wanted to show of the hotel revealing itself to Shelley Duvall. It's just a guy in a tuxedo with a drink, saying the party's great, and he has clearly been either murdered or fucked up because he's got blood all over his face. And Shelley Duvall is just obviously screaming every time she sees something like this. Next scene here, we got a bunch of scenes of Jack chasing Danny through the hedge maze with an axe. It's snowy, it's hard to see, but Jack is following Danny's footprints on the snow. Danny eventually realizes this, which we'll get into in a second. Another scene, one of the most famous scenes, so famous I had to put the picture next to me here. Shelley Duvall then, Wendy sees the elevator and pools of blood pouring out of there, and she is just fucking screaming, just seeing how supernatural this place has been this whole time. After that, though, she runs outside, and here's a scene of Shelley Duvall, Wendy, getting Danny into the snowcat. And the reason Danny got out of the hedge maze is he outsmarted Jack. He realized he had footprints there, so he backpedaled on the footprints, covered them up with snow in his hand, and then hid. And then Jack got to the end of the footprints and was confused because it's a maze, right? It's a maze, it's dark, there's snowy, and Jack's in full-blown psycho mode. He doesn't know where Danny went. And while he did that, Danny doubles back, gets out, and gets to Shelley Duvall. And what happens to Jack? He gets confused, so confused, in fact, he fucking freezes to death. Great picture here. A frozen Jack Torrance. And essentially, this ends the movie minus one important scene that I'm going to talk about in a second. But Jack is frozen. Shelley Duvall, Wendy, and Danny drive off in the snowcat to safety before Jack freezes to death. You can hear that. He's just screaming. And he can't get out of there, obviously, and he freezes to death. Then after this, we get the camera slowly moving back to pictures outside of the gold room. And we get a picture of this. And if you look closely at the bottom, in this party full of people in fabulous dressed gear, tuxedos, dresses, etc., who is there? Jack Torrance down at the bottom. And then it keeps slowly panning, and we see this. This picture is the Overlook Hotel, July 4th Ball, 1921. 1921, a picture of Jack was there. So like Grady said, he was always there. He was always there. That is The Shining. Like I mentioned earlier, there is no way... Oops. Sorry about that. There is no way that I could do this movie any justice. I couldn't. Not only is there so much to go over, with Kubrick there's so much symbolism, so much things about the photography and all of that. It's just too tough to get into, but I just wanted to go through the movie beat by beat and give you guys my thoughts on, what happens and why this movie is so good. For me, this is in my top 5 horror movies of all time. Let me know down in the comments if you guys are fans of this movie. I also am a fan, because I'm sure I'll get asked. I am a fan of Doctor Sleep, which came out I think in 2019. Very, very good movie. Did justice to both Kubrick's movie here as well as Stephen King's book, because as most of us know, Stephen King hated this adaptation of The Shining, but most people love it. It was not an overnight success. Like a lot of movies in its time, it gained its fame, or it gained its glory later. But for me, this is one of the best horror movies of all time. It just hits on all notes. It's so unsettling. All the performances by the actors are great. And it's Kubrick, guys. Kubrick is a genius, or he was a genius. It's unfortunate we couldn't get more movies with him before he passed. But The Shining is famous for a reason. I'm a huge fan of this movie. Like I said, I had to go through it beat by beat, because it's the only way I feel I could do it justice, and I guarantee you I did not do it justice. But there's just so much that happens in this movie, and for me, it's fantastic. It's right up there with Halloween as far as older horror movies that are just so well done, and there's just so many layers to unpack. Like I mentioned earlier, there's things, different theories about this movie. There's a theory that Kubrick was using this movie to apologize for faking the moon landing, and there's different interpretations of why. I believe there's a documentary, which I have to see. It's called Room 237, that outlines all the different theories and shit like that. I'm going to have to check that out. But when it comes to winter horror movies, this is right at the top. For me, it's this and The Thing, and then everything else as far as winter horror movies go. So do me a favor, like I said down in the comments, tell me if you're a fan of this movie. Tell me if you have any other favorite winter horror movies. I appreciate you guys indulging me in this review or breakdown, whatever you want to call it. I will see you guys next time.